City of Phoenix, Aeroturbine, the FBO, Control Tower, and the flight schools. Now, if you add in the number of employees within the city-county island, that brings in Lockheed and others that rent space from Reliance. That's going to increase the number to about 1,800 employees on the grounds of the airport. So that shows what an important economic engine it is for us. Also, over the past, since about 2002, the City of Phoenix has received grants of about $9 million for improvements to the airport. And 5.7 million of those have come in the last 2 years when Joe Husband has been our manager. And we're looking at 1.1 also in the coming year. So there have been great changes to the airport in recent years, and so they're going to tell you all about it. First will be Chad Makowsky, who's the Acting Assistant Aviation Director for the City of Phoenix. And Joe Husband is the manager of the Phoenix Goodyear Airport. And so I'll turn it over to Chad, and he can begin the presentation, and he'll turn it over to Joe.
Thank you. Welcome, Chad. You don't mind us calling you by first name. This is a work session, so we call each other on our first names.
Please do. That's perfectly fine. Thank you. Mayor Lord, members of the Goodyear City Council. My name is Chad Makowsky. I am the Acting Assistant Aviation Director for the City of Phoenix Aviation Department. My responsibilities include operational oversight, police and fire oversight at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, as well as oversight of the Phoenix Deer Valley Airport and the Phoenix Goodyear Airport. Very happy to be here today, and I want to thank you for providing us with this opportunity to speak to you today about the Phoenix Goodyear Airport and the importance of this airport, not only to the metropolitan airspace system, but to the city of Goodyear and the community as well. While the City of Phoenix certainly owns and operates this airport, we recognize we would not be successful without the collaboration and support of the Phoenix City Council, the Goodyear City Council, Goodyear City staff, particularly our CED group here within the City of Goodyear, and the folks at the Goodyear Airport. I appreciate your interest in the operations and economic development of the airport, and as I'm sure you're aware, the Phoenix Goodyear Airport is a significant economic engine to the community. In addition to being an employment base for several hundred employees, as Ms. Iliardo had mentioned, it also serves as a reliever airport, and so that's a very significant and important aspect of what the airport does for the metropolitan airspace as well. If you could turn the slide, please. Today, I'd like to share some information with you about recent activities at the airport. We'll be providing an update on the current operations, tenant activities, the Airport Capital Improvement Program, the Airport Master Plan, and our plans for future development in the Phoenix Goodyear Airport. In fact, our current approved capital improvement plan for the airport includes nearly $20 million of investments over the next 5 years. We feel it's vital that we work closely with the Goodyear City Council and city staff to ensure our investments in airport infrastructure are compatible with the city's overall economic development plan and objectives. As we have our discussion today, and as we move forward, I really encourage you to provide us with your feedback. It's extremely valuable to us as we go forward in this process. With me today is Joe Husband, Airport Manager for the Phoenix Goodyear Airport, and Joe, along with his dedicated staff of 10 airport professionals, effectively oversee the activities at the airport to ensure we're allocating resources necessary to meet our customers' needs of today, as well as planning for their needs going into the future. And so if I would, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Husband to address the specific activities, and we'll both be available for your questions as we go along.
Great.
Yeah, as always, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and see you. And I've been now about a year and a half at Phoenix Goodyear Airport and have had a wonderful time working with the staff of City Goodyear and, of course, the Mayor and Council here. So we, as a result of it come up several months ago when we were having a look at the airport, you said, hey, we'd really like to know more about where we are in the development opportunity. So I'm here today to provide that to you. And please, feel free to ask any questions as we go along. As much as this presentation, as well as the entire airport, I think it's a real partnership that we want to make sure we maintain. So hop right on in any time. The Phoenix Goodyear Airport is a general aviation reliever airport. As Mr. Makowsky mentioned, it's what the primary role is is to provide that relief of the airspace. If there was one airport in this metropolitan area, it would be, so congested that no one could use it. So General Aviation Reliever Airport here, Deer Valley, and some others within the metropolitan area really provide that capacity, that airspace capacity, to provide for a strong and a viable airspace system. So we're owned and operated by the City of Phoenix, of course, wholly within the City of Goodyear. We support air transportation, and that NIPIAS, that's called the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems. And what that is all of the airports throughout the entire nation working together to provide for that national airspace that supports, the military, civil aviation, cargo, commerce. That's kind of what we do. We do aircraft, one of our primary roles, one of our primary revenue generators out there is aircraft storage and service. So that's very much like, the person owns an airplane. Well, you can't really keep it at your house and take off on the street in front of it. So you need to have a place that has a runway, of course. And so we look at our hangars sort of as like the garage, a one-car garage for your aircraft. So we store aircraft. We also provide serviced aircraft, just like a gas station along the side of the road. As an aircraft is coming through the airspace, they can stop in, they can get fuel, they can get service for the aircraft and move on. And, of course, we have that training element, which is a really vital and important part of what we do out there, and a significant part of our revenue generation, which is pretty diverse and varied, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit later. So why do we do that? All airports are sort of in the business of providing that service and that convenience to the community, increasing the quality of life. So if somebody owns an aircraft, they don't have to drive, a bazillion miles to get to where they need to store that aircraft. And for the various business activities that go along, we do it right here in the community and increase what we like to think is a better quality of life. Commerce, I think both Paula and Chad talked about that an airport is a pretty significant economic engine, and we have a pretty significant economic impact. We'll talk about that a little later. But it's all about supporting that commerce. It's not necessarily that the airport, just because it's there, creates, billions and billions of dollars. It's a matter of facilitating that commerce, facilitating those activities, and providing that infrastructure that allows that to occur. We're situated, as you very well know, in the heart of the Southwest Valley, and really consider ourselves an important part of the Southwest Valley community. This I'm sure many of you know, but I thought I'd cover for just to kind of reiterate that the whole area out here grew up from Litchfield Cotton. Goodyear Tire and Rubber came out here and built the company farms where they were growing cotton to support the tire industry and make the plies. And from that, their relationship with the U.S. Navy led to the development of the U.S. Naval Air Facility to modify, test, and refit aircraft, and then after the war to preserve those aircraft, decommission them, and store them. Of course, the Blue Angels were here in the for about 10 years, up until the mid-1960s, until they moved off to El Centro for their winter home. So we bought the airport in about 1968 and started operating. It's been Phoenix Goodyear Airport ever since, in a variety of names, but most recently termed the Phoenix Goodyear Airport. So our airport, we have one runway, one taxiway. With the Navy built it long and strong, and we can handle that's an 8,500 feet long, 150 foot wide runway is pretty significant for a general aviation airport. And so as you can see by the aircraft that sometimes use the airport or are stored there, we can handle pretty much any type of aircraft, both light general aviation aircraft as well as military and other air carrier type aircraft. We're at 968 feet above mean sea level. Those are our coordinates. And what I really wanted to focus on is the site is 789 acres. Now, the significant portion of that is that about 400 acres is still available for development. There's still a lot of open land on the airport. So it's important that as we talk about the master planning process, that we think about the highest and best uses for those acres and what might work well there. So we look forward to continuing the collaboration and the planning that we've started and will continue. We have 147 hangars, and that, as I mentioned, that's sort of like the garage for your airplane. These are all T hangars, so they're built in the shape of a T, so that the aircraft goes in tail first, and then the wings are across the front. And 22 open tie or covered tie downs that also are very similar. They're nestled together in a kind of a T shape. And we have 276 based aircraft. That's both what's stored there in the various storage facilities as well as what's stored there with our business partners that we'll talk a little bit about later. well over $60 million in economic impact. You know, there's the economic impact certainly is to some degree down from what it was a few years ago, but it's still quite significant to the community.
Can I interrupt you?
You
So
may.
the hangars are not all closed. Those are open.
The hangars are all closed.
Okay.
Yep,
so
the hangars are all
You're
closed.
talking about closed hangars.
Right.
Okay.
And they're in a long rectangle row with the T's nestled together one another, and then the doors face out on either side.
I've been in there. I just want to
Yep.
make sure that that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
And so, how many lots are there for expansion on hangars?
A lot,
Endless?
maybe more.
Endless?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not endless certainly, but there is a lot of availability to continue to build T hangars, if that's in fact the direction at which we want to go. The cost of developing T hangars has increased significantly over the years because of the infrastructure that you have to put them in. It's not a piece of pavement with a metal building anymore and a sliding door. So, matter of fact, we have to, for all new aircraft hangars that are built, require, of course, there's power, and then, of course, there is a fire alarm system as well as fire suppression system. Really causes the cost to go up quite a bit. But as has always been the case, we will build what the demand requires. Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Aircraft maintenance, repair, and overhaul, one of our major tenants out there, Aero Turbine, which we'll talk a little bit more later in a little bit more detail, provides maintenance of all kinds to carrier-size aircraft. They can work on anything over 12,500 pounds. Of course, they do that maintenance, they do the repair, and then they overhaul. They also do storage and parts provision. We have a fixed base operator. You'll hear us use the term FBO quite a bit, or the acronym FBO. And that's basically a business that exists at the airport, that is based at the airport, that provides various service. Right now, both Aero Turbine, even the flight training schools to a degree can be considered fixed base operators. But when we talk about that, what we're mostly talking about is Luxair Jet Centers, and they provide service to aircraft as they fly through, both the aircraft that live at the airport, that are based at the aircraft, as well as transient flights come through. And then, of course, 3 flight training operations represent a significant portion of our air traffic there. Airline Training Center of Arizona, which is Lufthansa's Arizona subsidiary, providing flight training to feed their airline operation. One of their sublessees is Oxford Aviation Academy, that provides flight training for folks from the United Kingdom, as well as some other northern and Mideastern areas, Northern Europe and Mideastern areas, come in and do flight training there. And then the German Air Force has a base there, and they train there, do some of their initial flight training here before they move on to Texas for some more advanced training. So that's a little bit about sort of what goes on at the airport. 2011, we had takeoffs and landings. That's a calendar year of 138,000. An aircraft operation is either a takeoff or a landing. And when you do a touch and go, as Councilman Gelser mentioned earlier, that's 2 operations. Right now, we're at 138,000 operations, 138,606 in 2011. And, of course, we are ranked 88 among all airports nationwide. Now, there's a lot of airports in the world, in the nation. We're a very busy airport. And then within the metropolitan area, 7th of the airports in the metropolitan area. So just a little bit of information. Now, to put that in perspective, we had 138,000 in 2011. In 2010, we had 148,000 operations, and I'm kind of rounding off. In 2009, we had 177,000 operations, and then 178,000 the year before, and then 188,000 the year before. So as you can see, we've had some significant reduction in aircraft traffic. Now, across the nation, general aviation is down 18 to 25%, but within the metropolitan area, we're probably off less than many of the other. If you look at the period from, I think it was 2006 to 2010, we're down 8.3% compared to some other airports that are down over 40% in their aircraft operation. So I guess what I would say is we're weathering the storm well, considering that there is quite a bit of reduction in general aviation traffic. We're down some, but not as bad as we could be, and the revenues are still holding.
Joe, where do we rank compared to Deer Valley?
That's an interesting question. My boss is in charge of both airports. Deer Valley is the busiest general aviation airport in the nation. I would even say the world and possibly the universe, but I can't really say that for sure.
Councilman Stipp, members of council, Deer Valley is also seeing a reduction in aircraft operations. I think their reduction from 06 to 2010 was roughly 9%, so they're holding fairly well as well. In terms of aircraft operations, though, the 2010 numbers for Deer Valley came in at 368,747, so pretty significant. They have a tenant base of nearly 1,300 based aircraft. They are the busiest general aviation airport in the country. Just by way of comparison there. And Sky Harbor in that same time was 449,000 operations. So you can really see how close they are to the operations that we even see at Sky Harbor.
Other questions before I resume? So I guess what it really boils down to, as we mentioned, sir.
I have a question. I'm looking at the 2005 general plan,
okay.
And I was looking at the projections of air traffic over the next 20 years. And obviously, we're up from 2004, which was the base year that they looked at it. It seems like we went up and have sloped down. Where do you see, how have you revised these projections over the, for 2015, 2025? And would you be able to supply us with figures, or, what is your prognostications?
Yeah.
I'll take it, and then Joe can pick up whatever I don't get. We plan to do a master plan update every 10 years, and so we did one in 2005, approved in 2007. We do anticipate to kick off an update to that master plan in 2015, so that's already in our capital development program. In terms of the master plan, rather than the improvements being time-based, they're activity-based, and so what we do is really look at the air traffic, and when we reach operational thresholds or triggers, that's what really drives our capital investment into the airport. What Joe will cover in slides going forward is that master plan, what some of the short-term objectives were, and some of the work that we've already accomplished at the Phoenix Goodyear Airport. So.
I looked through it. I'm impressed already, so I can't wait to hear the good news.
Well, and I think, as you mentioned, the world has changed significantly, and we're going to talk about that as we move forward with the slides. I think all airports, I don't want to get too far afield from where we are, but one of the things that I've mentioned to the Arizona Airports Association, other airports, and other industry groups is we need to think about where our industry is going. Because general aviation, because of the cost, I'm talking about light aircraft, general aviation, people owning their own aircraft, I think the demand will reduce, and I think those numbers are going to, I think they certainly will come up from where they are today, but I am much more concerned about the speed at which we get to those very high numbers. Now, Deer Valley, I don't want to say they're an anomaly, but that is an incredibly busy airport. And Van Nuys, California, Falcon Field, those are all extremely busy general aviation airports. But I think we all need to think about where our industry is going over the next 10 years and beyond.
I mean, I'm looking at your 2025 projections, and
right.
You're projecting to be at the same level as Deer Valley, and it's like, well, I'm not sure that that's really going to happen at Phoenix Goodyear.
But
as
the
much
trend,
as we would like it to happen.
But the trend was certainly there. I mean, these are forecasts, and we all have to sort of get out our crystal ball. But they were basing that on the growth to that point and trying to project that into the future.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You betcha. So, Airport Operations Administration, and I put this on there because this is actually the background photograph, which will be a little clearer in another picture, is a picture today of Hangar 18. We just completed a paint job and also some additional work on it. But it's all one color, which is a good thing because we had some issues with the paint job.
Did you have somebody on our council complain about that?
I refused to answer under privileges from the 5th, 8th, and 14th Amendment or something like that.
I sent pictures. They were nice.
Yeah, they were. Anyway, a little bit about our staff organization and structure. As Chad mentioned, I call us small but mighty. There are a total of 12 positions that actually operate our airport. And then we carry on. Sometimes, as you know, it's a big airport. So we get support from Phoenix Sky Harbor and their technical staff and some of their tradespeople when we have larger jobs. But I also wanted to very much comment on the support that we receive from the city of Goodyear. And I work with most all of the departments at one time or another on one thing or another, including planning and police and fire, certainly community and economic development, the manager's office, the street department, public works. Work with all of these folks, and I wanted to, I mean, they're an important part of how we're able to get business done. And I also wanted to comment on the good experiences that I have had working with. I've been here a year and a half, and I have very much enjoyed the partnerships and working through a variety of projects with the city of Goodyear. So I thought it was a good opportunity for me to just let you know that, you know, from a perspective of a collaborator and a neighboring city, if you will, because we're sort of like a city within a city. I do appreciate very much Mr. Fishback's staff at all levels, and we've had some great experiences. Coordination, of course, with all of the federal, state, and local agencies. The FAA, Arizona Department of Transportation also has an aeronautics group within it. Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, the EPA, even the TSA, of course, they regulate some of the flight school activity and other things that we do at airports. So there's a lot of coordination that has to go on in interdivision, interagency, and intercity coordination that we have to do. You know, I wanted to mention we've been in the process of a strategic planning mission for a while, and this is both the Goodyear and Deer Valley Airports working collaboratively, but also the Aviation Department, the City of Phoenix Aviation Department has been going through a strategic planning mission as well right now. But I wanted to just share with you that, you know, we wanted to develop what should guide our decision every day, what we should think about when I have to make a decision. Well, should we replace that trash can, or, you know, should we expand the restroom? All should revert back to our mission. So I'm not going to read to you, but, you know, our mission and vision has been established. I will read our vision: is to place the City of Phoenix airport system as the foremost general aviation center in the world. And that is something that I try to think about every day. I want both Phoenix Deer Valley, Phoenix Goodyear airports to be where people want to come. And then, of course, this slide started sort of as a joke right after I came to Phoenix Goodyear Airport. I did a presentation on a project that we were doing back at our director staff meeting back at Sky Harbor, and I thought, I put this in there. I said, yeah, we're all going to get tattoos, you know. But what I found very quickly is that the staff that I had some very large work groups when I worked at Sky Harbor, up to 300 people that were within my chain of command, between contract and city employees. And I found that coming out here and the 11 people that I got to work with and their commitment to the airport and their ownership and the passion with which they did business on a day-to-day basis was really inspiring to me. And so this has been our slogan for a while, the airport with heart. And, you know, I mentioned that, you know, the conscience, passion, integrity, all of it comes from your heart. Your head might tell you to do the wrong thing, but your heart always knows the difference. So I just wanted to share with you sort of what we're all about. And as always, you're always welcome to come out here and then spread the word, you know, that we are the airport with heart. Okay, revenues and expenses. We currently have operating revenues each year of about $1.7 million and operating expenses of about $1.6 million. So we make a little bit more than we spend. However, that's pure operating cost to keep the lights on and to pay the employees. That doesn't include our capital investment. If you include the capital investment, then we do not cover our expenses. But, I mean, it's not, we are a municipal government operated entity, and it's not about making a profit. You know, it's about being able to invest in the airport and the infrastructure that serves the community. But that's where we are, so we're currently making a little bit more than we spend on operational needs. Our general, yep.
If I might add, I just want to make it clear that even though the city of Phoenix and Sky Harbor do invest in both Deer Valley and Goodyear Airport, it's important to know that none of the revenues that are used at any of the three airports come from general tax funds or, you know, general tax revenues. All of those are based and supported on the users of the system, the users of all three airports, and so that, you know, we are a self-sustaining entity in that regard.
And about, you know, one of the largest sources of our revenue, so I mentioned that $1.7 million in operating revenues, over $800,000 of that comes from our aircraft storage, from the people that rent T-hangars and cover tie-downs. So that's a very significant portion of our revenue. However, we also get several hundred thousand, about $600,000 and change from our commercial leases, our various business partners, and the leases that they pay for operating on the airport. And then the balance of it is made up of, fuel flow fees and other type fees that we charge, all to the users. And we think that and I think our customers will bear out that all of the fee structures are very fair and reasonable. But that's one reason that it's one of the smallest portions of our revenue. But we are doing pretty well, even considering that our air traffic is down. We are still holding pretty strong on the revenues. Now, another interesting thing is, for the last several years, usually we escalate any of our fees or rents or any of those types of things by consumer price index, as I'm sure you're all very familiar with. For the last several years, there has not been a CPI adjustment because the CPI hasn't grown. We this year, for the first time, had an adjustment of about 1%, give or take. So we are starting to see just a little bit of growth, in the economy as it relates to the airport. Some of our business partners, AeroTurbine, as I mentioned, they are, and Ms. Lardo mentioned as well, is a very significant partner to us on the airport right now. They recently have been acquired by ILFC, which is International Lease Finance Corporation, which is the second largest air carrier leasing company in the world. They have about 1,000 aircraft in their portfolio, a very significant business within the world's economy. They have acquired AeroTurbine. AeroTurbine continues to grow very strongly. They currently have about 180 employees, and that's up significantly from just a year ago. They do a lot of maintenance for the airlines in the country. Frontier is probably one of their biggest revenue-generating customers as far as they have their aircraft. They just recently signed a 3-year contract with them to provide what's called the heavy checks, or the heavy maintenance on their aircraft. It's sort of like you take your car in for an oil change. Now, Frontier probably does that themselves. But when they have to have a timing belt replaced or something like that, then they outsource that. So AeroTurbine is a FAA certificated maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility, and they're doing quite well. A great business partner to us. I mentioned the flight schools already, ATCA, Oxford, and the German Air Force. Luxair Jet Center also is doing quite well. Recently, the NASCAR event that just came through here, they had a very good weekend with about 40 aircraft that were here, as well as a lot of fuel delivered to them and other services. And they've really done a good job of building their business from the perspective of not just providing, not just building their fuel dispensed, if you will, but the NASCAR teams really have a lot of good things to say about their experience when they come to this airport. Yeah, the facility's great, and I work hard to make sure that the infrastructure's up to speed, but also just the experience that they have. Luxair always makes dinner for the flight crews on Sunday afternoon. They're now doing a go-kart race for the flight crews, and this isn't the race teams as much as it is the pilot and co-pilot from the aircraft. They go and they do a go-kart race, so they present the Luxair Cup and have the bragging rights. So they've done an excellent job building their business and developing a good sound base, continuing to grow. So it's a great opportunity. They're a great business partner to us, and we're even having discussions with them about right now facility development that we're looking at building out there to meet the needs of their operation. So great partner. Tim Berger actually is with us. He's the managing partner from Luxair Jet Center. So I can't say enough good things about him. We've had some great experiences with him. A lot of new projects and business interests that I mentioned, their facility development. We've had a couple of companies come to us recently and talk to us about perhaps building some box-type hangars, which is just a pure rectangle, not a T, for larger aircraft, potentially some business-type aircraft. We've had some folks come to us and talk about whether they might be able to develop some T hangars on the airport, as well as some other business interests. So, things are starting to increase a little bit, and we're looking at how we can do everything we can to support that. Activity. I'm trying to stay on target. It's a challenge for me. Anybody who knows me know I can hardly say my name in 30 minutes. But I'm working on it, and Chad is here to whip me when I get off too far off the way. Okay, back on the rail here. So the master plan, the master plan called for about $98 million of airside capital improvements, and another $98 million if you were to build all the hangars that you could possibly build. We're focusing on the airside improvements that we know will be needed to support the National Airspace System. Right now in the current airport grant program, you do typically 5-year planning. You sit down with the FAA and ADOT and say, these are the things on our shopping list for the next 5 years. We've got about $46 million worth of projects in there. Now those projects are approved one grant at a time. but they need to know what sort of is out there so that they can do their planning and decide how they're going to prioritize some of those projects out there. Right now, we're just finishing up a $3.8 million project. It'll be done here within the next couple of months or next month or so for some taxiway improvements. Next year's grant, we've got about $1 million grant already in the program. So that's sort of how the grant program works. And then in the aviation department, we also do 5-year planning, and we have about $17 million worth of projects that are programmed into that. Those are approved on an annual basis. So right now, we've got next year's money approved. Starts in July of in the neighborhood of $1 million. But that's what we've got programmed in over the years. So right now we're working on Taxiway Alpha, and I'll show you a picture of that here in the next slide or so. Hangar 18, I want to share with you some excellent news. That is the picture that was taken today. It has been painted. We've got all of the work that was required to get returned certificate of occupancy to the building. We had our final inspection last Thursday, and we had all the signatures that we needed, and we should have the certificate of occupancy within just 7 days, I think is what 7 business days. So that should happen anytime. We've already got a partner that wants to move in there. That's Galaxy International, which is an aviation-related company, and they're actually moving to the city of Goodyear. Now, they're moving about a quarter mile because they're on Lockheed's leasehold right now, or Reliance's leasehold, which is a county island. But they're moving into the city of Goodyear and onto the airport. And they rebuild parts for aircraft. They don't work necessarily on aircraft, but they rebuild parts and recertify them, make them FAA certificated for airworthy to be installed back on aircraft. Great company, small company, started in 2001 in a garage. And they've grown each year to having over 25 employees and continuing to grow. Really excellent bunch of folks. Joe Arizmendez is their president, and we're really proud to have them come to the airport. They came to us and they said, we need a little bit more room, we need opportunity, and we want to stay in Goodyear. And we said, boy, we want to help you. And so they'll be moving in. They're just finishing up the final planning of their TI process to move into the hangar, part of the hangar, about 14,000 square feet. So really a good thing for us. We talked about the program capital projects, and we'll talk a little bit more about them in detail. And then historically, as Ms. Lardo mentioned, in the last, let's say, 10 years, we've had about $9 million or more in grant money that's come to the airport. And then the aviation department as well has contributed approximately that much, well over $5 million to some other improvements that weren't actually funded through grant programs. So there's been a lot of capital investment historically in the airport, and I see that only increasing.
I don't think your microphone is on.
Mrs. Campbell passed it to me off. Is this the hangar that burned?
That is a hangar that had the fire.
I'm sorry, that had a fire in it, yes. Okay.
Yeah, it was. We actually did have, in one corner of the building, in one corner of the building there was a fire several years ago. It was put out very quickly by the rapid action of the Goodyear Fire Department. And we've also made all of those improvements, with the exception of one restroom that was on the second floor that we're sort of waiting. We thought we'd wait until we had a tenant. They might want to do something a little different, but yes. Okay. So, as I mentioned, the drawing at the bottom here is basically, you can see that if you look to let's see here, I can point. There we go. So right here is the Alpha 4 intersection. That has been converted to a double intersection, similar to this one right here. We just completed that. And then this was Alpha 5 and 6 that has been rebuilt, widened, and strengthened. And we're just about to finish that one. We're going to have we'll do that final paving here within the next couple of weeks. And then this was the Alpha 7 intersection that we widened and strengthened, similar to this right here, last year. So we're just about to finish that, and that's $3.8 million this year's grant cycle for those two, and then $1 million last year for this one. The Hangar 18 repairs that we're just finishing here, we had, there was another $150,000 or $175,000 out of our operating budget that we contributed to that, so it was actually closer to $700,000. But just to give you a feel for what we're doing this year to make sure the airport stays, out there and going. So taxiway improvements is what we've got next. I'm going to go back one. maybe. There we go. So on these, we actually moved the runway safety area back, and I'm not going to get in too much detail, but there's a kind of a buffer zone between the center line of the runway and then out to some distance out, in this case 260 feet, where you have to maintain a kind of a clear area. Nothing can get in there while the runway's operating. We moved that safety area back to what's the standard, the current standard for the FAA, to 260 feet. Now, we've done that at, there we go. We've done that at this intersection. We've done that at this intersection and this one. So next year, we're going to go back and do this intersection and these other 2, 3 up here to bring it up, to move everything back, and then also put some enhanced markings in there, as well as some what's called runway guard lights. So those are the taxiway improvements that are actually should be coming to us in the grant this late summer. Runway pavement rehabilitation and runway shift is what we're going to be looking at in the following year's grant cycle, so it'd be a year from this summer, if you will. That's what we've got put in there. It's not approved yet. And then the year after that, taxiway pavement rehabilitation, that's taxiway alpha. From time to time, you have to do, major maintenance to the pavement, just like you do to the streets.
Runway shift is the 300 feet on the south end, and then restriping the 300 feet on the north end. But you're not going to take away the 300 feet on the north end.
No, we're not.
You're not going to jackhammer that out.
No.
Okay.
In fact, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to there's a slide that's coming up here in just a moment. Hangway 18 renovation, actually next year, this is not in the grant program, but I've got money funded next year to the tune of about $1 million that we're going to do some improvements to the hangar and make it even more viable and valuable and attractive to occupancy. So we're pretty excited about that. Aircraft maintenance bay is just an opportunity to do some, it's a facility where our tenants can actually use that and have compressed air and electric and those kind of things where they can do some work on their aircraft. And then, of course, the master plan update, as we mentioned before. Typically, you'll do a master plan for 20 years. I mean, that's the planning horizon that you do the plan for. And then you look at that, usually do an update every 10 years, and you're going to kind of take a look at it about every 5 years. So we've got programmed to do a master plan update on about the 10-year cycle there, about 2015. And then, of course, apron pavement rehabilitation, that's just another thing that's in our plan as far as what we need to do to maintain the asset that we have with regards to the infrastructure. Okay, made it to the master plan. Very similar to a general plan that's done by communities. It's a collaborative effort where we, as we've got people from the community that are on there, folks from the military, people from the industry. Everybody's on what's called the Policy Advisory Committee, where you look at those planning efforts and make sure that they make sense for all of the stakeholders throughout. The current master planning process, I mentioned that in the 20-year planning horizon and where we are today. And what I want to talk to you a little bit about is the approved alternative, which is on the next slide. But as I mentioned, one of some of the things that are identified in the master plan of those future EADs, you look at the forecasted activity and determine what kind of improvements and or renovations are going to be needed at the airport, and then think about how you will finance those and what those costs are, and then give some schedules as far as when you want to do that. And as Mr. Makowsky mentioned, those are all sort of operational based as opposed to, okay, we're going to do that next year or 3 years from now, because the world could change as it most certainly has. So I'm going to move right on to the approved alternative. So what you have here is this very nice, brightly colored photograph, or this drawing, that talks all about where we are. So the runway shift that we mentioned, as you can see, this is our main runway. And one of the things that is listed in our master plan to do is actually shift this 300 feet to the south. So we're going to add pavement down here and then move the runway by virtue of markings. So right now, your threshold is here, for example. When we're done, we'll move the painting out to here and then move this one from here to here. So the idea is that you will actually, I brought a photograph, they're a larger picture, but I'm not sure that it's any easier to do it than just this way. But the idea is that it moves by paint. And why are we doing that? Because I mentioned that safety area. We've got a non-standard safety area at this side where a little bit of the safety area actually protrudes out to our fence and a little bit beyond it. So we want to actually move that runway to the south. So that's one of the identified master plan projects that's coming up soon. Some of the other things that are identified is a new taxiway on this side to support this new front door of the airport that is consistent with, the city's general plan with regards to moving more of the city center towards the west. and all of the area that's developable right out there beyond the field. So the idea is that the terminal ultimately moves over to this side. You've got areas where new FBOs and airport businesses can develop over here. The control tower moves over to the west side, as well as infrastructure to support some of the corporate activity that's always important and attractive to folks who are thinking about relocating within the city of Goodyear. So that's sort of the new front door and the business aviation zone, if you will. Still, we would retain the general aviation area over here, sort of a zone where we will continue to develop those hangars that are necessary for folks who own their own aircraft. Flight training is planned to continue right in its existing location. And then the sort of airport industrial and employment center would remain essentially where it is today. There is another runway that is planned here. It's right in this location. And here again, it's based on when we need that. We know that at some point we will grow to the point at which the current runway and taxiway system won't support the air traffic. We don't know exactly when that is, but I would say that our current airport or current runway capacity, especially once we develop Taxiway Bravo on the other side of the field, on the west side of the field, probably gets us out to in the neighborhood of 240,000, 250,000 operations. That's takeoffs and landings. So when we initially developed the master plan, we were looking at that fairly soon and thought we better start planning this. Now we've got some comfortable breathing room to think about when we might need that and where that trigger is to start the planning process.
What about the new terminal? What are we looking at that? I mean,
you know, I would say that what we really are looking at is when the west side development, when there starts to become a demand, and I want to talk a little bit about that.
So you mean if you're talking about Goodyear's, I mean the landowners surrounding that, or you're talking about within your confines of the fence line?
I think to some degree they're both connected. Right now the first project that would be developed on the other side of the field would be Taxiway Bravo to support the development over there, and also the entrance to the airport. We've identified the possibility of doing an entrance road right along off of Yuma Road and right along our perimeter fence until such time as the private development actually stimulates putting in the roadway, the other main entrance road. So if we had some
big user come in to that area, that would be something that would stimulate you to maybe move that date up. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And another thing it's really kind of hard, I mentioned a crystal ball earlier, is figuring out when exactly the right time to do those developments. Because if you wait until the big user comes and says, I'd really like to develop something on the other side of the airport, you say, well, okay, but we're going to have to put in a taxiway and a roadway, and that'll take us about 3 or 4 years. Well, they may go down to another airport. It's challenging. Airport planning is a very difficult thing to do.
I understand that, but we certainly would love to see that.
Oh, and we would too, as a matter of fact. But figuring out, we all need to arrive at sort of that. There's a term in the airport business.
At the same time, I'll do this.
Right. All of us working together, and that's one of the reasons that we're here today, to talk about how we can best collaborate so that we're all arrived to the same place at the same time, on the airport and off the airport, as well as being able to meet those demands as they come to us. So that's sort of a little bit of a general overview of the different zones of the airport and how they were planned. So it's funny, because your question puts us right where we are right now. We talked about our current plans and our future forecasts, and we need to really think about those cooperative efforts and work hard to make sure that because as I mentioned, we're a City of Phoenix owned and operated airport completely within the City of Goodyear. Much of the things that we do are done in collaboration with the City of Goodyear, and that's a good thing for us. So we just want to make sure and maintain those discussions, maintain that cooperative planning so that we all arrive there right at the same time. And as I mentioned before, it's been my pleasure to work with the staff at the City of Goodyear. It's been very much my pleasure to work with the you, Mayor, and the council members from the City of Goodyear. We look forward to continuing that bright future. And then what we'd like to talk a little bit about is how we can best cooperate for the mutual success of both of us. And that brings us here.
That was a great briefing. Thank you both very much. I'm going to turn this over to council now. Sherry?
Joe, Joe, obviously, we're a user of your airport because we have one of your hangars, and I want to say that, and just let you know that your staff and you are excellent dealing with you. That airport is spotless. It's well run. Everyone is friendly. It is such an asset to our city, and I agree with the mayor. I would love to see it develop on the other side, and hopefully we can work together and get that going. And in the plans, when you do update the terminal, is a restaurant or something to bring more like general aviation folks into it for the day and bring them into our city for a baseball game and lunch? Is that something that will be looked at too as part of the new terminal?
I think certainly. I mean, and we, the previous terminal planning, one of the problems that we have is you sort of look at the demand on the field. As far as Deer Valley is a good example of, several hundred hangars, many hundred hangars, and, many hundreds of based aircraft and a lot of activity. There's a lot more demand, if you will, that would feed that. I think that's what we need to look at, and I do think that the city is developing to the point, especially down in that area, there's not a lot of other restaurants close by. Much different if you go to the north side of I-10, where there has been a lot of development. So I think certainly that's something that we're going to look at. And I also would thank you very much for your kind words, and we are very proud of the airport.
Any other discussion?
I have a quick question. Did you turn it off? Here, Bill.
We need, of course, in microphones.
What are the hours that the airport operates, please?
Our airport is currently open 24 hours a day to air traffic. That means the lights are on 24 hours a day. The control tower currently operates from 6 in the morning until 9 p.m., which is 0600 to 2100 local. And then that is the same hours that our staff is typically there. For the last several months, we've had a construction project going on overnight, so I've had staff there overnight as well. But typically it's 6 in the morning till 9 at night for the control tower. The rest of the time, aircraft can use the airport. The lights are on, and they use what's called pilot control airspace by using a common advisory frequency. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to my husband belongs to Flying Group out there, and you see him frequently out there, and so he is also had very positive remarks about how the service is, and so. We're glad you're there. We want to continue it. We want to grow our side of it, and that's what we're excited about it. And that's in Paula's department to get this agenda. But we are looking at doing infrastructure in that area, and I hope we can start that very soon. And Chad, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you coming in from Phoenix to give this briefing.
Well, Mayor, thank you. And, as I did my due diligence before coming here, and as I started to work with Joe as I took over this position, I was extraordinarily impressed to find how rapidly the city and the community in Goodyear is growing. You all have a big job ahead of you just to manage the demand, but I really applaud you for your ambition, and particularly Mr. Fischbach and Ms. Ilardo for their dedication to really looking at the business development here. I even looking at the master plan back in 2007 and where you were then to where you are today, it's extraordinary. We're very pleased to be a partner with you. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Mayor Stanton, City Manager Cavazos, and Aviation Director Danny Murphy are very committed to partnering with the City of Goodyear to continue to develop the Phoenix Goodyear Airport to meet the needs of this community. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much. Okay, so we'll just go down to the agenda, and at this time, any information from the council members? I think Vice Mayor Osborne, Joanne, you had something you wanted to say?
I just wanted, usually I wouldn't have stated this now, but because so many things have been going on with the Homeless Youth Connection this month and this weekend, I just thought I would give you a couple of stats. I was given some figures of homeless teens and within our area, and I just wanted to share them with you. The Agraphia High School District has 64, and Tolleson High School District has 239. Buckeye Union High School District has 44. Dysart Union has 32. The charter schools, Estrella High School has 36, and North Star Academy has 2. And, those are just high school. Those are teens. We're not counting the middle schools. We're not counting elementary schools. But, I'm really appreciative of everything that this council does and our staff does with the Homeless Youth Connection, and just wanted to give you, kind of some updates of what's going on, and look forward to this Friday night, the dinner and auction.
Thank you, Joanne. I also have Joe, I'm sorry, you go before me. Sorry.
Just quick on the GAIN event, do we have an update of when that's going to be and where it's going to be, date yet? Has that been scheduled?
Yes, it has, but I don't remember it.
I'll send it out.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Joe.
Okay.
Mayor, I had,
Bill.
that's okay. I knew who you were talking about. I had the, and this is going to sound very weird, but I had the opportunity to interface with our police department last night.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I thought about how exactly to word this. We actually found our neighbor's door open. The dog came out. Nobody appeared to be home. Very unusual. And as I stood kind of vacillating about whether to call, I remember hearing Bill Cousin always telling us, if you're ever in doubt, call. So I called. And my wife was with me, and she said, well, I wonder if this is going to be the hour and a half it took for the Avondale PD to show up for a car broke in at her work. I said, I kind of doubt it. And sure enough, within a couple of minutes, Officer Todd Whitney back there and his partner showed up really quickly, very professional. Didn't realize who had called, so it was not any kind of a show, if you will, and did a great job. They were real professional, asked a lot of questions, took care of the problem for us. But I wanted to make sure the chief knew that, make sure John knew that, let our council know that when we need them, they are right there and did a phenomenal job. So,
Well, thank you. I'm
thank you for that.
glad to have the public hear that, and I appreciate their expedient to you and not knowing who you were. So the people out there can say it doesn't matter who the citizen is that calls; they'll be there. I just want to make an announcement for the Maricopa Association of Governments, or as we call it, MAG. They're currently conducting a survey of transit needs for the Southwest Valley. Now, why I'm announcing this is I want to make sure that our citizens that are listening out there will be a part of this. So I encourage our residents and business representatives to participate in this survey. It is the opportunity to collectively have a voice in defining the priorities that will be used to develop a comprehensive Southwest Valley transit plan, and we all want this. The link to the survey can be found on MAG's website. That's either www.azmag.gov or our city's website, www.goodyear.gov. Now, it's really important that they hear from our community on this topic. And they say it, I haven't done it yet, but it will only take a few moments. The deadline is Friday, March 23rd, so we don't have a lot of time. So if you could spread the word among your neighbors, and your Twitters, your Facebook, all you modern people here that are always out there communicating, if you could just put that on the site, it would be great. So, and I believe that is the manager. Do you have anything at this time? Well, so I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Now, before I adjourn it, we do have a special meeting. Are you looking that you want to take a break? And so what is it that you're looking at? 5-minute break? All right, 6 o'clock. All right, this meeting is adjourned, and we'll begin the other meeting at 6 o'clock.